What's up guys, Roman from RNS Entertainment, here with another video in my comic history series where I go over the iconic origins and storylines of all sorts of comic book characters. In this video, I'm going to be going over the origin of Toxin, the symbiote son of Carnage and grandson of Venom. Toxin is the 9th symbiote to ever appear in the comics, Planet of the Symbiote storyline aside, but only the 3rd after Venom and Carnage to be considered a major character. His origin is explored in Venom vs. Carnage, a 4-issue limited series released in late 2004. Finding out that Carnage is about to produce a symbiote offspring, Venom reaches out to his psychotic son in an attempt to control the future of their family line. He claims that Carnage's offspring will be the 1000th symbiote in their line and that its birth is inevitable. Telling Carnage that hatred is the natural relationship between symbiotes and their offspring, Venom wants to protect the soon-to-be-born symbiote to ensure their species' survival, while Carnage is disgusted by the thought of giving birth and determined to kill its spawn before it grows strong enough to challenge him. This conversation takes place during a fight between Venom and Carnage over the streets of New York, but ends abruptly when Carnage flings Venom into the East River and attempts to bury himself to stop the new symbiote from being born. In an explosive blast, Carnage gives birth to the new symbiote, and weakened from the process, he decides to bond his child with a police officer named Patrick Mulligan until he can regain his strength and kill them both. Venom emerges from the river, sensing the birth of the 1000th symbiote of his line, and sets out to protect it from its murderous father. Patrick Mulligan is a straight-laced cop from a long line of cops. Every Mulligan son from the moment their family came to America has worn a police badge, and he expects that his son will do the same. Patrick's wife is pregnant and ready to give birth to their son any day now, and they decide to name him Eddie, which unknown to Patrick is the same name of the host of his symbiote's grandfather, Eddie Brock aka Venom, who comes crashing through their apartment to protect the symbiote from Carnage. Patrick Mulligan pleads with the monster before him to not hurt him or his family, and when he tells Venom that he's expecting his firstborn son, Venom asks him what it's like to feel something other than hatred for his offspring. Having followed Venom's trail after being alerted to his presence by a peeping Tom who happened to see Venom fall into the river, Spider-Man shows up and remarks on how much of Eddie Brock's soul has been lost to the Venom symbiote, and a fight breaks out between the two while Venom tells Spider-Man that he only wants to protect Mulligan and the symbiote he carries from Carnage, and that he's concerned that the newly born symbiote will go insane without the proper guidance. Trying to keep his wife and unborn child safe from the monsters who have suddenly invaded his life, Patrick Mulligan attempts to lead them out of the building, only to be confronted by Carnage, who throws his pregnant wife down the stairwell before spiriting Patrick out of the building. Venom quickly follows and tries to stop Carnage, but is tricked and temporarily disabled by his physically stronger offspring. And with Spider-Man tied up with saving Mulligan's wife right as she begins to have the baby, it seems there is no one left to save Patrick Mulligan from the wrath of Carnage. Carnage throws Mulligan off a rooftop, and while he's clinging desperately for his life, the confrontation is noticed by Felicia Hardy, aka Black Cat, who was out stealing an expensive work of art back for the artist who was ripped off in a bad contract. Black Cat grabs Mulligan and attempts to escape, but is quickly stopped by Carnage and is amazed by how strong and fast the creature is, knowing that she's gotten herself into a fight she can't possibly win. Luckily, Venom has recovered and breaks into combat with Carnage, claiming that the killing stops here, though he quickly specifies that this only applies to Mulligan and the symbiote. While Venom and Carnage are locked in deadly combat, Black Cat escapes with Mulligan, and the two elder symbiotes continue to fight over their progeny's fate. Venom claims that this new symbiote will be an ally to him, and fight with him against Spider-Man and Carnage too if need be, naming him Toxin after himself. Their fight brings them into a subway station, and Venom pins Carnage to the rails and jumps out of the way, letting Carnage be smashed by an oncoming subway train. Meanwhile, Patrick Mulligan has been reunited with his wife at the hospital, and is introduced to his son, Eddie. Venom stays watchful over his symbiote grandson, knowing that Carnage is still alive, biding his time until the perfect time to strike. Spider-Man also decides to keep an eye on Mulligan, who finds himself faster and stronger than he was before, and already beginning to hear the symbiote's voice in his head. Patrick starts investigating a crime committed by Felicia Hardy and confronts her, though he's mostly looking for information on the monsters who attacked him. In a scene straight out of The Shining but without the axe, Carnage bursts in the door in the form of Cletus Cassidy, attacking Black Cat and then Mulligan, causing his symbiote to finally spring into action, engulfing him for the first time to create Toxin. Stronger than both Venom and Carnage, Toxin wrecks Carnage, smashing him against the wall and throwing him clear across the city. Venom watches this fight without interfering, stating that Toxin can stand on his own 2 feet and that he must let him make his own way in the world. The Toxin symbiote recedes from its terrified host, who has just learned that he's become attached to one of the very monsters he's come to fear, on top of the fact that Carnage is, in a twisted way, his father. Mulligan feels compelled as a cop to bring Felicia in, but she tells him that his life is different now, and that the rules don't always apply to people like him or to people like her. Patrick and his wife move into a new apartment, and during a coming home gathering for his wife, Patrick is unable to focus on his family or his newborn child, worrying about Carnage, Venom, and the monster within himself. When he's told his father is here, he thinks of Carnage before his own human father and drops baby Eddie, using the full extent of his enhanced speed to catch it before telling his father that things have indeed changed, quoting Felicia's words about needing to be more flexible. He hands off baby Eddie and runs out into the rain, convincing himself to embrace the symbiote and use the abilities it grants him, eventually being drawn to the apartment of Cletus Cassidy, deciding to kill Carnage before Carnage can kill him. Mulligan is already being influenced by the symbiote, and when Carnage attacks him, he calls out to it, saying that he needs it, and once again becomes Toxin. He easily overpowers Carnage, gripping him by the throat and being urged by the symbiote to finish him off, but confronted with the idea of killing someone in cold blood, Patrick once again regains control and leaves an injured Carnage gasping on the floor. Seeing the strength of Toxin and his unwillingness to kill, Venom approaches Carnage, saying that if Toxin decides to become a hero and eventually teams up with Spider-Man, he could be the end of them both, and proposes a temporary alliance to crush the younger, stronger Toxin before he grows even more powerful. We see Toxin doing just that as he tries to control the symbiote and use it for good, going after a group of criminals robbing a bank. The men are terrified by Toxin and apologize and throw themselves at his mercy. We see that the symbiote's urges are almost too much for Mulligan to control, as he almost decides to eat their brains out through their eye sockets. When the bank robbers realize that underneath the symbiote, Toxin is a police officer, they say that he can't kill them, it's against the rules. And again, Toxin repeats the words of Felicia Hardy, that everything has changed. He manages to once again regain control, and claims that he was only joking about eating the men's brains, when Spider-Man shows up and congratulates him on a job well done. We later see Venom and Carnage ripping through a graveyard where Patrick Mulligan and Felicia Hardy are attending the funeral of Randolph, the artist who was killed by Carnage in his first attack on Toxin. Venom and Carnage attack, and while Venom claims he didn't want things to end this way, he embraces the path ahead and continues the assault with Carnage by his side. Venom and Carnage overpower Toxin, but before Venom can crush Toxin under a tombstone, Black Cat interferes, telling them that if they're concerned about how Toxin will grow up, to raise him the way they want him to be, the way her father never did. Venom once again states that he considered that course of action, but after seeing how easily Toxin overpowered Carnage in a one-on-one fight, the strength he will gain as time passes is too big of a risk to take if Toxin turns against them. Spider-Man then shows up and confronts Venom and Carnage, breaking out into a fight that brings them into a family crypt full of the skeletons of multiple generations. But before they're able to finish him off, Toxin regains his strength, embracing his new life and allowing himself to take his anger out on Venom and Carnage. Along with Spider-Man and Black Cat, they manage to fight off the two elder symbiotes and force them to retreat, leaving Patrick Mulligan to reflect on the death of his old life and what this means for his new one. Spider-Man encourages Patrick to continue choosing to do good with the symbiote, believing that he can control it like Spider-Man controls his powers, and Mulligan commits himself to becoming more like Spider-Man, who he now looks at as a role model. When he notices baby Eddie playing with a severed finger that had somehow gotten attached to Mulligan in the graveyard, he realizes that this new monstrous life is unavoidable, and leaves his wife and child to begin his new life as Toxin, determined to model himself after Spider-Man and control the symbiote's dark urges. This wraps up the origin of Toxin, the first major symbiote to appear after Venom and Carnage, an interesting character with a new way of interacting with his symbiote, and the first symbiote we see other than Venom to attempt the life of a hero. Hope you guys enjoyed this comic history on the origin of Toxin. If you liked the video, make sure to also check out the origin of Venom, where I go over the full origin of the Venom symbiote, Peter Parker's time wearing it as the black suit, the eventual creation of Venom when the symbiote fully bonds to Eddie Brock, and his first encounters with Spider-Man. The symbiotes are my favorite characters and storylines in Marvel Comics, followed by Spider-Man in general and the X-Men, and I definitely plan on doing more comic history videos for them, including future Venom, Carnage, and Toxin videos, as well as videos on all sorts of other characters from both DC and Marvel Comics. So let me know what you thought about this video in the comment section below, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to my channel for all sorts of cool comic book content in the future.